Face the event. From brand ambassadors and event staffers to magicians and presenters, it's the one and only podcast to introduce the faces in and around the trade show and events industry. And here's our host, Scott Tokar.
Hello and welcome to Face the Event. My name is Scott Tokar. I am your host, and if you're in the world of brand ambassadors, trade show staffers, crowd gatherers, if you represent a brand as a gig, well, then this is the podcast for you. Today, we have a wonderful talk with a brand ambassador. She likes to call herself a branding associate and a crowd gatherer. We're going to be talking with Sara Konecky in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we always start off our podcast with a question. And today's question is, how do you take care of your aching feet after a brand activation or a hard day on the trade show floor? Let's find out. What do you do about your aching feet?
As far as aching feet after the activation, I think everyone has different tips and tricks. I like to, just have an opportunity during breaks during the show to kick my shoes off and let my feet kind of not breathe, sort of like get the circulation back into them.
But my feet will still hurt after the show, so I will soak and rub them I will soak them in Epsom salt and then rub them with a great thick lotion and put heavy socks over them while I sleep. And that feels so good.
When my feet hurt after the show, the first thing I do is go get a glass of wine, preferably a Malbec.
You know what? I love just going back to my hotel room and soaking my feet in a nice hot bath.
What I do is I put extra sole pads inside, so during the show they don't hurt as much.
Well, the best answer to that is try to get off of them. And that sometimes means saying no to your friends, saying, hey, let's go out and do such and such tonight after the show. No, I'm going to go back to my room and put my feet up. Sometimes you just have to make that sacrifice.
I'm sure a nice bath is good. Jacuzzi if you got one. Epsom salts perhaps.
I'm not really a bath person. I never take them at home. But after a day on a trade show floor, just soaking in a nice hot bath is just the best thing ever.
Don't be out the entire rest of the night when you have to do another 10-hour day the next day.
My feet hurt after the show, and that is when I know I have done a phenomenal job for the day.
We want to thank Philip Victor, Shannon Dade, Rick Gerber, Sasha Love Higgins, and Larry Wyatt for their insight on how to take care of your aching feet. So, as you may or may not be aware, if you've been a long-time listener to this podcast, I'm a trade show magician. That means that I work on a trade show floor. I represent products just like a regular brand ambassador or a crowd gatherer or a badge scanner would do, but I add magic to what I do. And the person that we're going to interview right now has worked with me as a crowd gatherer and also as a magician's assistant on trade show floors. She has many years' experience and is happy to share with us some of the things like how she got started in the business and what would your duties be as a crowd gatherer and how to get on the A-list of agencies out there. Well, without blowing the entire interview, let's let her answer some of these questions. Please welcome Sara Konecky. So we have with us today, Sara Konecky. Sara, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us here on Face the Event. Now, we've known each other for a really long time, but you have to tell me, how did you get started in trade shows and events?
So I really fell into it. It wasn't something that I seeked out. I was doing a lot of acting gigs and random jobs here and there. I would do a temp job for a while, and so this was really great for me because I had the ability to take time off. When I was working in an office for a while, in a legal office, and whenever I would have an audition, I would have to say, "Oh, I have a dentist appointment," or "I have some kind of appointment," and that didn't work for very long because they would wonder why I have so many appointments. And so this was great. One of my friends actually asked me, she said, hey, we need a few more people for this event. I know you haven't done this before, but it's really fun and you'd be great. And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And then after that, the agency liked me. They kept hiring me, and it just snowballed into events all day, every day.
So, and this is something what do you like to call yourself? I mean, you work a lot of trade shows. Do you work other events too?
I mostly do trade shows. I haven't worked trade shows for a while because last year I was in a full-time job, but I still worked a couple trade shows. I'm no longer in that job anymore. But when I was doing it more, and what I still call myself, a lot of agents have different names for it. Some of them say crowd gatherer. Some of them say hostess. Some of them they say associate. So there's lots of different names. And typically when someone asks me, what do you do? I say I work in events. It's just a lot easier to say I work in events because people a lot of times don't understand. Or sometimes I'll describe it as I'm a spokesperson for different companies.
So is there one of those titles that tends to make you more money, or do you get paid the same regardless of what you're called?
Well, the crowd gathering is what has made me the most money. Because it takes, if somebody wants a really good crowd gatherer, I'm a really good crowd gatherer. And there's some companies that they want you to scan tons of badges. Other ones, they want you to know everything about the product. And they want quality over quantity, and some want quantity over quality. And I'm really good at jumping between the two. And I'm willing to work really hard. And I have a lot of energy. So I've really had some great opportunities and great crowd gathering jobs. But I would say product specialist or crowd gatherer tends to get, yeah.
So let's go over your duties as a crowd gatherer. What is your duties? What does a day look like as a crowd gatherer?
Goodness. It takes up a lot of your energy, you always want to get to work early. Make sure you have a lot of caffeine on hand, your coffee and your energy drinks if you drink those, and make sure you have adequate food for your lunch and your breaks. But what you're doing is there's going to be people walking by your booth. And a lot of times you're working with people, like you're working with engineers, or you're working with, IT guys, and they're working in an office all day long. And so they might not be used to being extroverts and going and grabbing people and saying, hey, come in, check this out. Look what we have this year. This is brand new. And my husband's an engineer, so God bless engineers. He's an introvert. So they hire us to do that part. And we have to know about the product because, if somebody says, well, what is this? What do you guys do? We have to know what the company does. And we have to be able to say, hey, Scott over here, he knows a little bit about this. Come on over and visit him. We often have to scan the badges of the people, tell them about the events that are going on at the booth. For example, if there's any raffles or contests or, new products or giveaways, those types of things. That's basically what we're doing. But it really varies from client to client.
So tell me, what is scanning a badge? What exactly is that, and what do they do when they scan a badge? I'm confused.
So everybody at a trade show gets a badge when they register, and that badge usually has a QR code or some kind of code that you can scan, or an RIDF. And so we take our scanners, which have been given to us by the GES, or the folks in the back, and they so then when we scan them, we obtain their emails, phone numbers, their name and their title, probably their job, their workplace. And then we're able to send them follow-up emails, or we're able to get them on our email list. They might get a call from us. It's better, I think, when they're a little bit more qualified leads. Sometimes the booth just needs to know how many people came by the booth. And
so you're gathering the contact information. So at a trade show, you might have, let's say, a large trade show, you might have 40,000 people at a trade show. And the people that walk by the booth, if you can scan them, then you can gather their information so they can do post-show marketing. And this is also a great thing because it helps quantify. It helps them decide whether or not this is a good trade show for them to be at. So
were we in front of a lot of people or not? Did a lot of people come to see us or not?
Right. So they're going to decide whether or not they're going to come back next year based on the amount of numbers that you get them. So as a badge scanner, as a crowd gatherer, you're really critical to that exhibit, to that booth, because you're doing that function of gathering the contact information of the people.
Right.
So what kind of products have you worked for in the past? What kind of companies have you worked for?
A lot of tech companies. I've worked for lots of tech companies. Tech companies and medical companies are my biggest ones. I've worked food shows, I've worked athletic shows, you name it, I've probably done it. But my main ones that I've worked towards the end of the second half, I would say, of my career have been the medical and the tech. And I've worked for Ixio is a big one that they hire me a lot. Samsung and Cisco and
now, do you travel, or you're based in Los Angeles, I think. So do you travel from Los Angeles, or do you just mostly do shows here?
There's not a lot of shows in Los Angeles, so I do travel a lot. And one of the really hard things about this job is that sometimes the clients don't want to pay travel for the people who are scanning the badges because they think that, which is kind of true, they think that, well, we want to hire, and they say this, they say, we want to hire someone local. But if you really, and so sometimes you agree to it. Like in the beginning, I would agree to that because I was just getting my foot in the door. And so I would, and they're good pay rates. They were good day rates for your pay. So, but you really had to be cheap on the travel. So you had to get up there inexpensively, stay up there inexpensively. So if you had a friend or a family member, or crash with them, and maybe buy them dinner or something like that. But so that was how it was at first. And I have hundreds of stories about all the crazy travel and 4 girls in a hotel room. And
a lot of times other crowd gatherers, other badge scanners, other event staffers will share a hotel room, because you kind of know each other from maybe Facebook groups or just working, and you kind of know people, and you say, hey, are you working this one? And they'll gather together, and I'll bet that's a lot of fun, though, isn't it?
It's a lot of fun. It got to the point where at first I was just like, I hope that I like these girls. I hope that we all get along. But it got to the point later on that I preferred to be staying with them. These girls were my best friends. And it's nice to go back to the hotel room after we're done, talk about the day, have a glass of wine, relax. And, in the morning we would walk to the trade show together, go to the exhibitors lounge and grab a coffee. And it was really a lot of fun. And I really made some great friendships.
Now, how long have you been doing this? Because it sounds to me like it's a career, like it's something that you've been doing for a long time to make your primary income source. Right.
It was my primary income. And now, so I'm not sure if you know this, I'm going to be starting as on the other side and booking people that's what I was going to start when COVID happened. So I just landed a new job working for Accent. I don't know if you know Accent, Meredith at Accent. And so I just got a job with them, and that was in February. And then obviously COVID happened. So then I'm furloughed right away.
Right.
So just I was getting the job, I'm furloughed. But yeah, it's a career, and a lot of people will do it. I would have kept doing it. It was a lot of travel, but this opportunity came up, and so I took it. But people have been doing it. People do it for 20 years. I was doing it for over 10 years. And if you're good at it, you can make a lot of money.
You can, and it's recognized. You're recognized by people as being one of the best in the industry. And me personally, you've worked with me, and that's because I consider you one of the best ones out there. So I know that when you're on a activation, when you're on a trade show floor with me, I don't have to worry about anything. I know you're going to help get those numbers up for me and gather the crowd for me, and that it's worth a little extra to know you're going to get the job done in the right way. So
exactly.
Your reputation means a whole lot in this industry. So
it really does.
Tell me a little bit about, I don't know if you see, you're kind of going into the world of being in the agencies.
Yeah.
How much can someone expect to get paid working a trade show?
So, I was making probably, I bet you I was making among the top of what people were making, because of people thought I was just so energetic. I mean, people were just like, how do you have that energy day in and day out? And I've always just been energetic. So I know that, and that will get you secured for the next job. The client will request you each time. And then you'll say, then after a while you'll say, I need to have travel paid for and everything. I'm not going to share a hotel room this time. And then they'll say, okay, fine. So then you're just, one of the crew after that. But, wait, what was coming with the question?
So the question is, I mean, you are a top performer.
Yes.
So,
pay.
But yeah, talk to me about pay. Maybe starting pay, and then what's the top end? You don't have to tell me exactly what you're making, but I mean, tell me what's going on in the industry.
Right. So I think the low end is going to be some agencies will try to pay like $235.
How much?
$235 a day.
$235 a day.
Yeah,
that's still pretty good money.
It is pretty good money. But it typically, I don't think, goes lower than that. I guess a while back, I remember one agency was paying $225. But then, $250 is kind of your general standard. But a lot of people that, have been doing it for a long time kind of expect $300 or $350. A lot of my clients were paying, $450 plus travel. And so
plus travel. So there's no out of pocket then. So you can actually go to Vegas or to Chicago or Orlando or those. There are certain cities that are really the kingpins of this trade show world. So if you're already in Vegas, Orlando, Chicago, New Orleans, maybe Denver a little bit, San Francisco a little bit, those seem to be the big players.
Yeah.
So how do I get a job like this? I mean, how do I get to the agencies and things like that?
You have to make a profile. For a lot of them, you have to make a profile. For agencies that mostly book, the crowd gather, lots of crowd gatherers. If you're booking lots and lots of crowd gatherers and that's your thing, you need to make a profile on their website. They have a database and you make a profile. Otherwise, it's just good to have a resume, photos, maybe some video of you doing some MC work or working at a trade show. Maybe you're scanning badges and greeting people. That's always good to have. A lot of my jobs have been through connections that I've made, primarily. So
to get started, maybe go to some of these agencies and make a profile on there. Make sure you have some photographs, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And fill out your resume.
Yes.
And then accept at the beginning some of the less expensive jobs, and then work your way up. Because you network, you get to be known in the industry, and then you can ask for some of the better gigs.
Exactly. And I think that's how I've met almost everybody that I've worked with. It's just mostly through connections. I mean, I have a friend and they'll say, this Sarah might be available. She's really good, or, so that typically happens. And then once you work, but you don't want to just work for that company and then not work for them again. You want them to see how valuable you are, and you want them to request you back year after year. And then it's really great when you have 3 or 4 different companies that want you for the same show.
Right. So how do you begin getting more companies then? I mean, is it because that one agency, or do you do multiple agencies?
You do multiple agencies. So, I was working with I was working with, Anders at Infotainers and Ken at Magnet and Event Pros and Accent and Promote Live. UDVen a little bit. I was working with so many different agencies. And after a while, you start to get those regular clients. So you work all these different shows, and then the client will just say, "Hey, I want her back again. We need her back." And so it's nice when an agency will book you really far in advance, and then you just know you have the gig. But that's another thing, is juggling schedules, because sometimes shows do overlap. So if you have a show that you always work and another show that you always work, and the dates happen to overlap, that can be really hard, because you have to pick this client that you're always loyal to, an agency, and this client and agency that you're always loyal to. And that's really hard.
Yeah, not every trade show repeats the exact same dates every year.
No,
Some of these trade shows move venue to venue. So they could be in Vegas this week, or this year, and then next year be in Orlando. And if they want you back, then they're going to have to pay to have you travel. Now, Tell me a little bit about
a war of just who's going to pay more.
Oh, yeah, you should. And you should know which agencies pay more, too.
Right, exactly.
So that leads me to this question. How do I know that I'm working for a good agency? Tell me what's the flags? What are the indicators that you're with a good agency?
So I like it when I am working for an agency that actually knows me. I like it when they know me. When they see me, they know who I am. We've talked in person. They've come to the trade shows. They know what I look like, and they actually care. There's a few agencies that I've worked for on and off, and they wouldn't know me if they saw me, because I'm just a person, a name that they booked for a spot. So the ones that I work with the most know a lot about me. They're my friends, and I become friends with them over time. So those are the ones that I think are the greatest. And I also think that it's good to have a little bit of transparency as to, you don't want to feel like you're getting cheated, but you also know that the agents have to make money too. That's what keeps their lights on. And, I think a lot of associates don't realize how much work it actually is for agents to do the booking and do the numbers. And a lot of times they'll do all of this work. And if somebody cancels, that looks really bad. And so there's just a lot of things that associates don't know. And a lot of times, associates have other aspirations. Associates are crowd gatherers. A lot of times they're in the Screen Actors Guild and they might get an audition, or this happens a lot, a better gig will come up. So you might be getting, a certain rate, but then if somebody else offers something, you shouldn't go and take the other job, even if it's more money. You shouldn't.
Not if you want to be in this for the long haul.
Exactly.
Because this is a world of networking.
Yes.
We all know each other, and the agents all know each other too. So if you get that reputation, we've talked about this before on the podcast. If you have the bad reputation, you're going to get the bad gigs.
Exactly.
So what does a bad agent look like?
Well, so can I give an example?
Don't name names. Let's
name names.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was 2015, and I got booked for FabTech in Chicago, and they needed our sizes for our clothing. So my husband has Crohn's disease, and he had to get an operation. He had to have a colectomy, or where they take out a big portion of his intestines because it's damaged. So he told, my husband said, I was so stressed out over canceling, but I knew I had to cancel. And it was, I think, 2 weeks out. And, my husband, bless his heart, he said, I really want you to be there, not just for me, but because I know that if you weren't there, you would really regret not being there. And I don't want you to have that regret if something would happen. So I called up the agency and was telling them about it. They were so upset with me that I was going to go, and be with my husband during his surgery. And that was really hard. That made me see this, I mentioned that a lot of people cancel, that's awful. So I'm sure that they get that a lot. But there is the other side of things where, if there is a family emergency, we don't have sick leave. We don't have things like that. If something happens, we can't, those are those 4 days that client is going to see us. And if you're not there for those 4 days, that one time a year, that looks really bad. But the thing is we're doing show after show after show. Sometimes something might happen. I've worked at events sick. I've worked at events, which is bad. I hand sanitizer like crazy. But that was the only time I can think of that I canceled out of all the years.
Well, you're a gig worker. So, there are great advantages to working the gig life, and that is that you really are in charge of your own career. You have many bosses. Barring a major coronavirus outbreak that shuts down the industry, if I lose one gig, it doesn't mean I lost my jobs. I have many eggs in many baskets and can usually survive just about anything. But I usually hear when I ask a question of what makes a bad agency, sometimes it's long time to get paid, or they're not communicating to you well, or that kind of thing, or maybe they just have a bad reputation you didn't know. What are the warning signs?
So that is a really big deal. I'm the getting paid on time, and to be completely honest, I don't mind that as long as I know I'm going to get paid. But most people really mind it. Every 3 months I'll check my jobs in, jobs paid. And if it's been like 3 months, then I might contact the agent and say, hey, I haven't gotten paid for this, but I know that a lot of girls, it's a really big deal. They want to know, when am I going to get paid? And if I'm not going to get paid within this amount of time, I don't want to do the job. And it's also really hard when you get certain information that here's what you're going to be doing, and then when you show up, it's something else. You might be hired to be scanning badges, but then they want you to be on the mic. And that's a higher rate.
You should get paid more for that. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. And so, and that might be something in the spur of the moment that the client just does. So that might be, but the agency should always let you know that, these are the things that are expected of you. If they ask you to do anything else, you need to call us. It's good if they do a check-in. Or a lot of agencies will have a team lead, and the team lead will check with the rest of the staff. I mean, the communication really has to be clear, down to wardrobe, down to what the company is like, what their website is, so you can do some research. So communication is very important.
So if you could look back at Sara a long time ago, and this is when you're first getting started, and you had the knowledge that you have today with all the experience and all the things you work with, are there some pieces of advice that you'd give yourself, and maybe this would be valuable to someone that's just getting into this industry?
Yeah, I think that I would have told myself to believe in yourself a little bit more at the beginning. I was naive and I wasn't sure I could do things. It really was a great fit for me. Doing trade shows was a great fit for my personality. I think what I would tell a lot of girls, not me, because I don't think that I did this when I was young, but I think that, or when I was starting, but I think a lot of girls they feel entitled. They feel entitled even though they might not deserve it yet. There's a lot of girls in this industry, mostly girls. It's mostly girls. There are male crowd gatherers too, but it's mostly females. There are a lot of girls that have been doing this for so long, and they're so solid and so reliable, and they're not going to get upset over, oh, I have to take my break later. Just those little things. Those are such small things. And so I think that some advice would be to know that you're going to have to work hard and work your way up. Just like any industry. I'm sure that you, as a presenter and a magician and an illusionist, I bet you know that too. You can't just go in and expecting the world on your first gig.
No, you need to be humble, and you need to be very giving, because your clients, the people that are hiring you, by the way, when I say client, you actually have two clients usually when you're doing this. You have your agency that's your own personal client that's paying you, but it's the people you're working for through the agency that are your clients and boss there on the trade show floor. They may not have worked with someone like you before, so you need to be a little bit assertive to help them, but you need to be kind and do extra things. So sometimes it does mean picking up the trash can and running over and emptying it, even though you're hired as a crowd gatherer, not as a janitor. Yeah. Trust me. Those things that they see you doing and being part of the team and helping really do make them want to use you again and again and again. And it's when the agency gets the feedback that they want you back, you're now on the A list. You're now going to be the one that they want to send out the most, because they want repeat customers too.
Exactly. That's absolutely true. And one thing that, associates or crowd gatherers have to remember is this may be the first time they've used a crowd gather, and they might have been really on the fence about it. They may have been thinking, oh, I've never done this before. Is it really worth the money? I'm not sure. And so then when they hire you, they really want to see that it makes a difference. They don't want you to come and be like, I'm not going to pick up the trash. I was hired to just do this. And, just do what you can to help. Just do what you can. Remember that the client, they're people too. They are probably working from morning until late at night every day on this show. They want it to be a success. So when you go in there, help them make it a success. You want to go in there hoping that it's a success too, and doing all that you can to make it that way.
So, Sara, before we finish all of this up, do you like people to follow you on social media? Is there any way that we can contact you? I mean, you're going to be doing, once we get back to normal trade shows again, you're going to be doing probably some of the management aspects of things. Right. How do I find you?
So you can contact me at my email or my Instagram or Facebook.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's be safe because there's so many listeners here. If you give out your email, you're going to be spammed like you wouldn't believe. So how about your Instagram? How do I find you on Instagram?
It's Sara Konecky. So SaraKonnecky. So it looks like Sara Konecky, but it's Sara Konecky. But just think of it like Sara Konecky. Konnecky, and that's me. And then the same as Facebook. I think it's facebook.com/Sara Konecky.
Perfect. Well, hey, Sara, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I'm sure that you've been a motivation to people that are thinking about a new career path. And, you know, I think that as we get out of this COVID thing, people are going to be looking for jobs. And I'll tell you what, gigging, doing short-term jobs sometimes can really mean the difference between making rent and not, and this is a great way to do it. So
exactly, it's so much,
and it's so much fun. Yes, as you just said, you cut out there, but you said it was so much fun, right?
Yeah, so much fun.
Well, hey, thanks so much for spending time with us. I can't wait to see you out there on the trade show again real soon.
It was good seeing you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
We want to thank Sara Konecky for sharing with us some of the insight that she had to the world of trade shows and brand ambassadoring. Boy, I can't wait to get back out there on the trade show floor once this coronavirus thing is over. We always like to end each one of our podcasts with a way to make you smile, and that's what we call a face palm. A face palm is one of those embarrassing or unusual situations that you've been involved in or you've seen happen around you while out on an activation. And today's facepalm, I'm going to tell you about something that happened to me just about a year ago. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you might see that right behind me is a Guinness World Book of Records plaque. And that came because I did the farthest teleportation of a human being from point A to point B. Our customer came to us and said, we want to be able to tie 2 tents on this very large fairgrounds together at the Farm Progress Trade Show. Now, what happened is this company had merged with another company, and they had 2 very large properties that were about 8 blocks away from each other. Anyhow, I said, no problem. Let's make my assistant vanish from one tent and instantly appear in the others. Using some technology, we can show the video of what's going on live and have an audience in both places. And hey, this might qualify for the farthest teleportation. They were sold. So we set it up and we did it successfully, as you can probably tell because of the Guinness World Book of Records. But we had only that one time to do this one trick. Here's why. Because when you're doing something for the Guinness World Book of Records, you have to have an official there. So we flew an official in from Guinness World Book of Records to join us. When he joined us, we had to do this particular stunt at 10:15 in the morning. Couldn't do it later because he had to catch a flight to go do another, Guinness World Book of Records thing. Well, we pulled this thing off. It was an absolute success, and we had so much fun. But at 10:30, literally right after we finished, the skies opened up. It's as if no one else could do anything else on that day. Literally, it was almost a tornado opened up with hail, wind, and downbursts. And since we're working in tents, we had to evacuate both of our tents. Well, having a large staff with me, it took a while for us all to meet up in one place. We were able to meet up in one place, and the show was canceled that day. So kind of a facepalm, because had I not been able to do that magic trick exactly at 10:15 a.m., had I waited 15 minutes for whatever technical reasons, we would never have the Guinness World Book of Records, and the trick would have never been done. So for me, that's a facepalm. Well, I hope you enjoyed our podcast today, and I hope you'll join us next week because I have some fantastic guests lined up to talk to you. So please subscribe using your favorite podcast listener, like if it's Apple or Spotify or Stitcher or iHeartRadio. Hey, so click subscribe and do me a favor, rate us and give us a comment. A comment is like gold to us. I'm not asking for anything for you to pay for any of this information, but you can really help me if you'll rate and review this podcast. Well, until next week, I can't wait to be out on an activation with you. And remember to face the event.